In the previous episode, Team X finally reached California and met with the military's person in charge.
We have the package here. Safe.
So, you're the Murphy.
Murphy, who wasn't too fond of the people wanting to use him as a guinea pig, wasn't very polite in his speech.
Now what?
First, we have to make sure you are who you say you are.
Oh. I am.
How do we know you are who you say you are?
Matheson, with a serious expression, said, Captain Roberta, I fully understand your reluctance. We've been tracking you for years and know how hard and challenging the journey has been, and it's hard to trust strangers, but I think Mr. Murphy should certainly recognize her. After he finished speaking, a woman in white entered. Murphy's eyes narrowed slightly. This woman was indeed still alive. Many viewers might have forgotten her. She was Dr. Murch, the one who had forcibly injected Murphy with the zombie virus 4 years ago. Matheson brought Murch to confirm Murphy's identity. However, Murch shook her head. She had only met Murphy briefly before and couldn't be 100% sure now. Murphy became even more irritated at this. The woman had never respected him, and he growled. When this woman had injected him with the zombie virus and left him behind, Murphy had said the same thing.
Pack me! Pack me! Or I will hunt you down and eat your brains!
Hearing this, Dr. Murch was entirely convinced that this was indeed Murphy.
Satisfied? Very.
A few minutes later, Matheson prepared to take Murphy back to the submarine. Since 10K's injury couldn't wait, Doc thoughtfully handed him a pillow. Doc, worried about 10K, proposed to go along to take care of him, but he was stopped by the military doctor, who said there wasn't enough room in the vehicle and reassured Doc that the advanced medical facilities on the submarine would take good care of 10K. Murphy was also somewhat reluctant to part, but he wasn't good at expressing such emotions, so he pretended to be okay.
I need your word that he would be treated humanely. He may be the Murphy, but he still is a human being.
You have my word, Lieutenant Warren. We'll treat him like the celebrity he's about to become.
This goodbye might be their last meeting. Murphy unusually greeted everyone.
Sorry about your family.
Through.
Finally, he solemnly thanked Roberta. Without her protection, he might have died many times over.
You better get going.
Thus, the 4-year-long journey came to an end. Team X successfully completed their mission, delivering Murphy to the California laboratory. They only hoped that they could develop a vaccine to save the world, but the military didn't mention the reward for completing the mission.
Let's get these bodies out of here.
Meanwhile, at the North Pole, due to radio damage, Citizen Z hadn't contacted Team X for a long time. Today, he planned to enter the military system to access information but found the password incorrect. After several attempts, it was still the same. This was outrageous. He had always managed the database and never changed the password. The only explanation was that his system had been hacked. Citizen Z was puzzled. 2 years ago, the base exploded, and all servers were damaged and shut down. How could someone have hacked into the database and even changed the password? Suddenly, a beeping sound. Now it made sense. A machine had survived. Now, it was easy. By connecting the server to the computer, he could find the person causing the mischief. Citizen Z was once considered the top civilian hacker. With a few taps on his keyboard, the hacker's traces were immediately revealed. This person, to hide their tracks, had routed their connection through servers in Ukraine to South Africa before finally hacking into the Arctic station. This was clearly a diversion. The person was extremely cautious, with a complex retreat route, passing through China, Mexico, Antarctica, and finally ending up in Molokai, Hawaii. This piqued Citizen Z's interest. What secret could be on Hawaii Island? He decided to hack into their system to find out. Though there were security measures in place, to him, the system administrator was as dumb as a zombie. Citizen Z grew more excited. His days in the Arctic were unbearably dull, and now he finally had some fun. But his smile froze when he checked the recent download records. The screen showed videos and transmission logs of Murphy with Team X. Realizing this, Citizen Z understood he had been used to track Murphy all along. There must be a huge conspiracy behind this. Perhaps even the coordinates he gave Team X were leaked by these people. If that was the case, he had unwittingly sent Murphy into danger again. Deeply alarmed, Citizen Z quickly destroyed the server. 10 minutes later, he picked up a radio with little battery left, trying to contact Roberta.
If you can hear this broadcast, tell the package to abort mission. Repeat. Abort mission. Location compromised.
Before he could finish, the radio completely broke. Sometimes life is like that. Just when you see hope in a desperate world, you discover it's all a conspiracy. Citizen Z felt an overwhelming sense of despair. Perhaps there was no future in this apocalyptic world after all. Half an hour later, he packed his bags, ready to leave the Arctic. As staying there had become utterly pointless, he didn't know if he could make it out of the icy wilderness, but he had to try. Unknown to him, Murphy had already been taken away. Inside the small tavern, Team X didn't rush to leave. They planned to rest there for the night and help Auntie move the bodies of the bounty hunters. Suddenly, gunshots rang out. Roberta and the others quickly became alert. As they surveyed the surroundings, more intense gunfire started. They had no choice but to take cover behind the vehicles. Vasquez peeked out and saw that it wasn't bounty hunters attacking them but the Zero Group.
Bounty hunters?
No. Zero. Lots of them.
Hearing this, they understood Lorena, the leader, wasn't dead. It made sense. These people had injected themselves with a serum made from Murphy's blood and already had zombie traits. The zombie horde probably mistook them as their own kind.
So remember, there is no such thing as death.
The firepower was too intense. Team X could barely retaliate. What a bunch of lunatics. After 3 minutes of continuous firing, Lorena commanded her subordinates to charge. In this critical moment, Auntie came out with a gun, giving everyone a chance to breathe and quickly take shelter inside the...
Come on!
They wondered how the Zero Group found this place. It's all thanks to Kurian's head. He had once seen the coordinates written by Addie. Lorena didn't order her men to continue the heavy gunfire. She thought a long-distance sniper kill would be uninteresting and decided letting this cunning team slowly die would be more amusing. Inside the house, Roberta was worried. Their bullets were running low, not even totaling 20 rounds, and the house was merely delaying their inevitable death. My goodness, Auntie has so many weapons. With this newfound arsenal, a turnaround might just be possible. They quickly armed themselves with suitable weapons, preparing for the Zero Group's assault.
Hey, Roberta! Hey, it's not you I came after, just Murphy, I only want Murphy. You give him to me, and we can still be friends. Too late, chica. He's gone.
Vasquez took the opportunity to sneakily aim at Lorena, hoping to end everything by killing her. Unfortunately, he missed by a bit. Furious, Lorena decided to end this game, instructing her men to initiate Plan B. What happened next was unexpected. The front row of her men, killed and rapidly turned into zombies, were used as shields by the armed ones behind them as they advanced. A fierce gunfight ensued. Roberta managed to kill one of the enemies, and Auntie took down another with a rifle, but she was quickly ambushed and shot by someone on the side. Doc, praising Auntie for her good shooting, didn't realize she had turned into a zombie. Thinking fast, he swapped places with the zombie and used the enemy's hand to eliminate it. Half an hour later, the gunfight was still intense, with both sides relentlessly firing. Suddenly, a figure sneaked in through the front door. It was Lorena's attendant, confidently waving a skull staff. Roberta aimed and fired, only to find her gun empty. The man looks calmly into the room at Addie. They silently agreed to a melee deathmatch. The man took a small loss, shook his neck to hide his embarrassment and charged forward with vigor. Their weapons clashed one after another. Addie's hand was numb from the shock, and the last blow broke the wolf's tooth stick that had been with her for 5 years. The man took advantage of her confusion and knocked Addie to the ground, followed by a fatal blow. At last, the man was dead. Suddenly, the door opened again with Lorena's voice coming through. Instead of attacking, she tried to persuade Roberta to hand over Murphy and join her in creating a new era for the Zero Group. When Roberta informed her that Murphy had been taken by the government, Lorena, enraged and embarrassed, charged at her. Everyone thought Lorena was weak and gentle, but she fought fiercely, not losing ground to Roberta. Eventually, Roberta was knocked to the ground with a wine bottle. Roberta felt dizzy and had a hard time getting up. Lorena, pulling a hairpin from her hair, prepared to finish Roberta off. She couldn't believe her eyes when she saw the figure at the door, a scorpion. The man who fell into a horde of zombies was still alive. Confusingly, a scorpion, who always saw Lorena as his queen, killed her. Moreover, he extended his hand to help Roberta up. What exactly was going on? Suddenly, Vasquez charged out from behind. Everyone was puzzled by a scorpion's actions. A scorpion, with a sense of resignation, said, "Lorena is no longer my queen. Ever since she was injected with Curian serum, she changed. I followed them here, and all they seem to care about now is destruction and violence. They are no longer human." After saying this, a scorpion turned to Vasquez. He pleaded with Vasquez to allow him to live a little longer in this world to atone for his sins through actions. If Vasquez insisted on avenging his wife and daughter, a scorpion was ready to accept death. Roberta didn't try to persuade them. It wasn't their place to interfere. In the end, she left the decision to Vasquez. They stepped outside, finally having a moment to assess each other's injuries. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out. They all thought Vasquez had acted, but it was a scorpion who emerged. Could it be? Roberta went back inside, and her heart settled when she saw Vasquez unharmed. He hadn't acted. If a scorpion had shown resistance or aggression, Vasquez would have shot without hesitation. But in this situation, Vasquez couldn't bring himself to do it. He hated his own weakness. This is the end of the matter here. Team X's mission was over, and they were uncertain about their next destination. Vasquez chose to leave the team and stay alone in the tavern, needing time to heal himself.
Need a ride? I got enough food, ammo, and Z-weed for a month.
I'm in.
We're only going as far as the beach.
I like the beach.
Nobody expected that the laboratory responsible for developing the zombie virus vaccine was located in a nuclear submarine. Murphy followed the military personnel inside, curiously looking around. The long corridor was somewhat crowded. 10K had fallen into a coma on the way, and 2 soldiers carried him at the front. Soon, the medic led them to a compartment and quickly arranged for personnel to treat 10K.
They'll do everything they can. Now we need to leave.
We'll make sure to get him back to his friends in one piece. Your man's in good hands.
It's not my man. It's just a byproduct of the apocalypse it couldn't seem to shake.
Follow me.
From these actions, one could sense Murphy's cunning. He didn't acknowledge 10K as his friend because he was always wary of the military. In case of any contingency, these people wouldn't use 10K to blackmail him. 7 years into the apocalypse, he was no longer the weak and cynical fool he once was. Then, they continued deeper into the submarine. Murch asked Murphy if he experienced any side effects after being injected with the zombie virus. Murphy briefly and vaguely answered, revealing nothing about his ability to control minds. Soon after, he was led to a room that seemed like the command center of the submarine, surrounded by staff operating machines. Murphy felt something was off and cautiously asked if they were really working for the US government. Matheson vaguely replied that the concepts of nation and government no longer existed. They now served Zona. Hearing this, Murphy was taken aback. They first learned about Zona at an alien base in Roswell. Although the exact location of Zona was unknown, its impression on them was that of possessing technology beyond Earth's capabilities. Now everything makes sense. Zona is the power behind Murch. Proudly, Matheson began to explain that Zona was a place created by visionary businessmen before the apocalypse. Working on a plan to save humanity, they had created an island free of zombies, planting seeds of hope for the next generation. Murphy, far from reassured, fell into deep thought. Suddenly, through a reflection, he saw a staff member's eyes glowing. What kind of creature was this? He maintained his composure, pretending to listen to Matheson while quietly knocking a cup off a table. The sound drew the attention of all staff, their eyes emitting a blue glow. Murphy felt uneasy and quickly changed the subject.
My bad. So if we are going to save the human race, maybe we better get started.
He was then strapped to a bed by 2 soldiers. Dr. Murch prepared to draw his blood for research. Murphy took the opportunity to ask in a low voice what was wrong with the men's eyes. Murch explained they were just early vaccine recipients from Zona, experiencing side effects. Murch continued, saying that she actually had never been to Zona. She had been conducting research on the submarine for years, but the vaccine she developed was not perfect and could only slow down the attack of the zombie virus. That's why she urgently needed Murphy's blood antibodies. Murphy now understood that the vaccine development was not to save all of humanity but to serve the elites and their families in Zona. They proclaimed grand ideals of continuing human civilization, but it was all for their own benefit. Then, Murch further inquired about Murphy's medical history, such as whether he had smallpox as a child, any sexually transmitted diseases as an adult, and even if he had any children. Murphy, naturally, could not reveal the truth about the last question, as he would not put his daughter in danger. Therefore, he quickly thought to use the excuse that these questions were too private, hoping to get the two guards to leave, perhaps thinking Murphy posed no threat while restrained. Murch agreed, but when she turned back, Murphy, now 2 meters tall, loomed over her.
I thought you might be different to Dr. Kurian, but I was wrong.
You've met Dr. Kurian?
Oh, we're old buddies, he and I.
There was so much Murch didn't know. Initially, Team X was deceived by Kurian into going to the underground laboratory in Komodo State, where they witnessed some harsh truths. Murphy still vividly remembers the horribly tormented test subjects that suffered at the hands of Murch. Furthermore, based on what he saw upon arriving at the submarine, Murphy realized that this was not about saving humanity. He was being used as an involuntary blood bag, merely to save a few wealthy individuals in Zona. An hour later, alarms blared throughout the submarine, waking 10K from his coma. The bullet had been removed from his body, and his wound was bandaged. 10K can already walk on the ground. He wanted to go and see what had happened. Meanwhile, Roberta and the others, catching a ride with a scorpion, arrived at the beach. They wanted to wait there, hoping the submarine crew would bring 10K ashore after treating his injuries. They also hoped these people would treat Murphy with the respect he deserved. However, Roberta's expression changed as they walked, noticing flames and smoke billowing from the submarine's location. What was going on? Had something gone wrong? Roberta quickly grabbed binoculars and saw that the submarine was engulfed in flames and sinking. Murphy and 10K were still on it. What had happened? Suddenly, Addie noticed a dark spot moving away from the submarine. Through the binoculars, Roberta saw Murphy, Matheson, and Dr. Murch on the vessel. Roberta smiled, realizing Murphy had escaped, but then noticed 10K wasn't with them. Suddenly, the roaring sound of 2 fighter jets whooshing overhead was heard. Judging by the model and pattern, they did not belong to the United States.
Those don't look American.
They're not.
Then, they were surrounded by a group of military personnel, who, judging by their skin color and facial features, were also not Americans. And with that, the second season of Z Nation came to an end. However, several teasers were left at the end of the episode. The first teaser showed Murphy indeed safely leaving the submarine, but not by escaping. Seeing the bite marks on the faces of others might explain it. Murphy now moves with an air of someone who looks down upon the world. The second teaser showed Citizen Z in the Arctic, who soon after leaving his base became frozen solid, standing upright in the snowy wilderness, his state of life or death unknown. After some time, a figure appeared before him. The third teaser was about Murphy's daughter, Lucy, now nearly 3 years old. She dressed herself as a princess and sat having tea with 2 zombies beside her.